Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, joined as always by Joe Resinello. Once more, dear friends, let us go into the breach. So this is Joe sent me all the things we were going to talk about tonight. I want to say, just to preface it, this is one of those shows. Please listen to the whole show, okay? Because we're going to talk about a few things. But the 2-second segments we're going to do, which are separate, but we talk about the same things. Really speak to why the Frontline with Joe and Joe, along with many, many others out there in social media, are doing what they do. Because really, there's some diagnoses of the problems that we're facing. And they are, like we said in one of our previous shows, these are big issues. The things that we have that are obstacles in our way to leading a happy life, to being free. We're gonna talk about a lot tonight. So we just want to let you know that we want to thank everybody. We want to thank Joe Camp over in Brooklyn for always having our back and supporting us. Jonathan Ross at HolyFaith Media, getting hundreds and hundreds of views, thousands in some cases, as our video 2 weeks ago got 5,000 views. So we're getting a lot of support. And I think you mentioned on Google, or if you Googled the Frontline with Joe and Joe about 4 months ago, you might have to go 5 pages before you even get to us. We're starting to get a number of hits. It's coming up a lot. So the word is spreading, and we're pretty happy about it. Very happy, and I'm happier also because today is my brother-in-law's birthday. Yes. And I just want to say happy birthday to Joe Resinello. Thank you very much. So let us then go. Let's go into that breach for your birthday and fight a little battle here. What's going on? I love it. Well, racial politics is alive and well in America, as we all know. All week long, the media cycle is who's calling who a racist. I want to break it down in 2 discussions. The first being between Pelosi and AOC. This happened in the very beginning of the week. Supposedly, from what I read, obviously I'm not in their circle, that Nancy Pelosi was riding AOC a little bit. Supposedly saddling her with distracting work as she saw it, and she didn't like it. So basically, she came out with this quote. She basically said, "Now, who's saying this?" AOC. Okay. Because of the fact that she feels like she's getting put into the corner by Pelosi. She says, "The persistent singling out, it got to the point where it was just outright disrespectful. The explicit singling out of a newly elected woman of color." Let me first say that her being Hispanic has absolutely nothing to do with her being singled out. What does have to do with it is she's a disaster for the Democratic Party. And Nancy Pelosi, who I despise, gets it. On that political level, point, she gets absolutely sees it as clear as day that this woman is absolutely dragging the Democratic Party. All those people who hear my voice, who happen to be Democrats, if you see otherwise, sadly, you're either your head's in the sand. This woman is dragging, and we're going to talk a little bit about the so-called squad. The squad. They are absolutely killing your party. Right. You will lose. I'm going to be honest with you. Donald Trump doesn't even have to campaign. If they keep doing this, doesn't even have. All he's got to do is take his top 5 achievements. Just let's say, assuming the economy is the same way it is then as it is now. All right, and a few other things that are going to appeal to the evangelicals that voted for him, the Catholics that voted for him, the more conservative Jews that voted for him. When it comes to things like defunding Planned Parenthood, point that out. Workers, unemployment being very low, bringing back manufacturing. All he's got to do is just keep going like over and over again. Destroy. Because here's one thing about AOC. Maybe she doesn't care. Maybe it's her naivete, whereas Nancy Pelosi, love her or hate her, and we don't hate her, but her ideas we certainly despise. Nancy Pelosi understands not every member of the House of Representatives that's a Democrat is in a safe district like Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi's in a safe district, okay? But she gets the politics of it. How many of these people that were elected in 2018 that are Democrats are in what they call purple districts? They could go either way, okay? AOC has no care for that. She lives in what she thinks, I guess, is a safe district. Rashida Tlaib is in a safe district. Ilhan Omar, what's the other one? Ayanna Pressley. All right, this is the squad. That's the squad, okay? I guess they're in safe districts.
Ironically enough, a Jamaican immigrant is going to run against her.
I can't wait for that. I'm not giving it too much credibility right now, but yeah, supposedly, as Joe said, there's a female Jamaican Republican that's going to challenge AOC in that district. Okay? But the thing is, Nancy Pelosi, at the very least, on that political level, is not naive enough to think that they could just say whatever they want, or even she could just say whatever she wants and not endanger those House seats that are in, let's say, what the press would call purple districts. Okay. But how do they, getting back to the original topic about race, Nancy Pelosi's a racist now?
Well, it's sad. It's sad because here's the thing, and my wife and I were talking about this, who happened to be black, and we were talking about this as we were driving to a barbecue yesterday. We were with Joe in Bloomfield, New Jersey. Gotta love it. Shout out to Guy and Lucille. Good time. Bloomfield, New Jersey. Anyway, there is racism in America. Let's be real. There are pockets. People are racist. There's no question. Stuff like this, comments like this, Jussie Smollett, the incident we covered in Chicago, this hurts people of color. Mm-hmm. It's like crying wolf. Nancy Pelosi is not a racist in her basically trying to like silence AOC. She simply feels that she's hurting the party. Right. And guess what? She's right.
She is.
So it has not, and shame on AOC for dropping that card. You know, you don't, just because you're Hispanic, just because you're black, just because you're Jewish, just because you're Muslim, doesn't give you the right to just say anytime someone criticizes you legitimately, just as people criticize me, to say, you're a racist.
Right.
No.
Well, here's
absolutely not.
But here's the thing, Joe. That's why they couch everything in race. So even that now, again, you're saying they're turning on their own when they turn on Nancy Pelosi. But Nancy Pelosi's sin is that Nancy Pelosi's white. So now it's not just a matter anymore that like she's liberal, she's a woman, but she's white. And she's singling us women of color out because they've couched, like I said, everything in race. They present ideas. They're all a member of a minority of some kind. Joe AOC's Hispanic. I guess is a Muslim
from Somalia.
So she's an immigrant. Okay. Ayanna Pressley's black. Rashida Tlaib, I'm assuming, is a Muslim.
Yes,
okay. If you white people disagree with us, you're racist. That's now even applying to Nancy Pelosi. But I want to segue from that for a second into something that we need to talk about. Okay, this is why we're at the front line with Joe and Joe. As Americans, we need to stop letting the left identify us however they want. And what they have done, and what they've been very effective at doing, I had this conversation with my wife very recently. What they've been effective at doing is they've created the enemy, and the enemy is white people. But you want to know something? There is no such thing. There's no such thing. How do you categorize a white person? Color of my skin? In other words, like I said, I was talking about this with my wife, who Joe points out is black, and we were trying to hash this out a little bit. The last time I checked, and this goes back to what we said earlier about taking back our language. In other words, the language that we use, okay? The language that we allow the left to use. In other words, they just throw everybody in the same group. They point them out and say, you're all white, and ergo, you're racist. When I said to my wife, from now on, the way I'm describing myself, which is much more accurate than the color of my skin, is I'm a Roman Catholic American of Italian descent. That's what I am. Truly what I am. And I gave my wife the example of my relationship with her. And I'm sure, I know this is the same with you, okay? When I first saw my wife, okay, we met on an online dating site, CatholicSingles.com, okay? In other words, I obviously noticed that my wife had black skin, okay, had dark skin, that she's a black woman, okay? And after having noticed that had nothing to do with why I pursued my wife at the time, because race never played into it. I was there because of what I really am getting to here. The real ties that bind in this country have nothing to do with race. That's my point. And in the case of me and my wife, our bond, all right, that ties us together. And again, I know I'm speaking for you too, is our Catholic faith, okay? But when you let them just call you white people, then I would say this, and I'm going to throw it back to you and ask a question, all right? I'm a white guy, according to them. That means, ergo, I'm racist. Why would I have married my wife if I'm a racist? You see how easily dissected their argument is? Why would I marry my wife if I'm racist? Because she's black.
Well, it's
or does it? Or are there categories? My question is: are there categories that we need to start emphasizing more? Real ties that bind, like ethnicity, religion, okay, and other things. But we let them do this.
Well, it's identity politics and it's tribal. It has nothing to do with, to be honest with you, like color of skin and or religion, in the sense that Joe Biden is Catholic, Joe Biden is white. I don't support him.
Right.
I support ideas. I support ideas. If you're not part of this quote unquote tribe, and if you don't behave according to the tribe, somehow you're out. Ileana Presley, basically a month ago, made a comment along these lines. She said something along the lines of, I'm tired of brown-faced people not acting as if they're brown-faced people.
Now, what does that mean?
Well, basically what she's saying is, if you're black, you have to
agree with them.
Correct.
That's it.
And frankly, a lot of black people don't. So does that not make them black? To me, that's a racist statement. To me, people should be outraged.
Right.
Yet they're not. So,
but we know they've been doing that for years. In other words, the way they've tried to destroy and discredit black conservatives, starting when we were a lot younger, 30 years now, when Clarence Thomas was nominated. The way other black people, like he was the black guy that the white people can attack. But why? Because in the point of this segment is that take the race argument and throw it out the window. This has to do with politics and a political agenda that they're trying to ram through. How can she say to a black person, you're not really black if you don't agree with us? Who that for you?
Oh, I agree.
Who are you?
I think that's ridiculous.
You know, this is an intellectual lightweight like Ayanna Presley. Would she say that to Clarence Thomas, who's an intellectual heavyweight?
Please.
Okay.
Clarence Thomas, yeah,
I know.
That's just
Hold on.
ridiculous.
I should be slapped for making that comparison.
But this is where we're at. It's just tribal. Their religion is their political identity.
Right.
And if you're not in lockstep with AOC, you're a racist.
Right. Exactly.
And frankly, that's not how it rolls. And I'll be honest with you. There does come a time when we see in the news or we hear something when someone is a racist.
Yeah.
What happens then, it's like the boy that cried wolf. It waters it down.
Right.
It waters it down.
Charge of racism used to be a very serious thing in this country. And rightfully so. Okay, rightfully so. But now, like you said, somebody cries racist, people they go, okay, whatever, and they move on to the next because nobody believes you. Okay, Jesse, you just mentioned Jussie Smollett, right? Same thing with a lot of the homosexuals. I was beaten up by a bunch of Trump supporters, and then we found out. Well, you know what? You if you had a cause, you just sent it back. I don't know how far. Because you're the boy who cried wolf. And it's the same with race. You can't just call people who disagree with you racist and think you're going to continue to get away with it.
Well, they're doing
we're not. Well, of course.
Because they know. You see, sadly, in our politically correct society, that is a get-out-of-jail-free card. And they know.
Right.
So basically, my point is shame on anyone who does that. Mm-hmm. Shame on them. Because you're not, basically, you don't embody MLK's dream by doing that. By the way, you're not embodying the American spirit. By the way, by throwing the race card. Now, if there is racism, then you are. But by what she did for Pelosi, right. Pelosi's not a racist in saying that, and I dislike her.
Right.
Frankly,
I don't like any of her ideas, but I'm not gonna. But I'm not gonna call her. I'm not gonna call her
she's not
a racist.
And that is, to be honest with you, hurting the dialogue. It's adding fuel to the fire. It's not helping.
Well, let me ask you this, because this is an important question. We always try to figure out, well, what is their end game? What is the end game of the squad? Okay, what are they trying to accomplish? They can't be so stupid as to think, or so naive as to think that this is going to be a winning formula for them, okay? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people sitting in the House of Representatives that are on the Democrat side of the aisle that want to tell them, you guys need to shut your mouth. You really need to stop, because my seat's in jeopardy because of you opening your mouth. And again, politicians want power, all right? So what is their end game? Are they just willing to give Donald Trump 2020? In other words, because they're going to try to gain more support in their caucus and create a new caucus? I don't know. I honestly, I like to think I know a lot. I like to think you know a lot. I can't see their end game because I think it's a political dead end.
I think they're delusional.
Nancy Pelosi actually, like I said, she actually gets it. That's why she's the Speaker of the House again. Okay? In other words, you can't call the woman stupid. She says stupid things, okay? But politically speaking, even the dyed-in-the-wool conservatives will say, the woman seems to know what she's doing when it comes to, maneuvering around Washington. So she gets it. She wants to keep the House.
Of course.
You could always, she figures this way, at least we'll have the numbers, we'll have the majority, and then we can whip people in the line. Whip, not in a racist way, whip the way the Congress is
You're
using.
racist.
Right, I'm a racist. I use the word whip. They could whip people into line. All right, and they could get people to come on board with legislation, okay? Maybe some politically risky moves, but she figures, well, it's better that we have the majority, and she could say Speaker of the House. That gives her more control. They could control the committees and everything else. These women, this squad, they don't seem to care. And again, my original question was, what is their end game? Because they're not gaining any power right now. Other than on MSNBC and CNN, they're
getting likes on social media.
They're getting likes on social media. All right, but the thing is, the person who's liking you, AOC, out in Texas, okay, that's not in any of the districts where the squad is, okay, that person is going to vote against a Democrat, okay, a member of your party, and vote for a Republican. So you get all the social media likes you want, but you're going to lose power. But I thought you wanted power. So again, I'm saying this a little bit more rhetorically, like I don't know what their end game is. I know Nancy Pelosi's, but I can't figure hers. I know Joe Biden's, but I can't figure that out. I really can't.
Well, let's go to the second little exchange.
There's more of this?
Yes. This went on all week, and I'm sure you guys have all followed it. The second exchange, before we get into it, you're with the Frontline with Joe and Joe every Sunday at 8 o'clock, and you can catch us on HolyFaith Media as well. The second exchange was the Donald Trump tweet. Now, Donald Trump tweets directed to the squad, but I think most particularly to Ilhan Omar, who is a Somali immigrant. She represents the folks in Minnesota. Anyway, so he basically says to her in so many words, you come from a country that's a disaster. If you know so much, why don't you go back there, fix their problems, and then come back here and tell us how it's done. Mm-hmm. That's the whole quote.
Which was, of course, ripped out of context.
Okay, so everyone gets, he says to her that she should go back to where she came from. That's not what he said. He said just what I said. That was the entire quote. And this went on and on. Is it racist? Is it not racist? Is it racist? Is it not racist? Could it have been said better in the sense that, maybe. But at the same time, he didn't mean it in a racial context.
Right.
It's almost like someone saying something like, listen, you don't like it here, like your mom when you were 18. You don't like it here, you can move out.
Leave.
It's the same context.
Right.
Now, it went to a rally. Donald Trump was at a rally, I believe it was in North Carolina. People were chanting, send her back, send her back. First of all, he didn't invite that, meaning he didn't say it and then they said it. They said it. I saw this today on the news. It went on for 13 seconds. He was absolutely, I watched his facial expressions and basically his body language. He didn't express, it was actually completely like blank. Mm-hmm. He didn't express any I'm affirming this, I'm not for it. Mm-hmm. And then actually after the fact, he said that they really shouldn't have said that, and he kind of distanced himself.
I agree with him.
From the statement.
People have to watch what they say. Look, when you live in it was political. I mean, it's still political correctness. It was starting to be called political correctness back when we were a lot younger. Now it's called hate speech. Okay, people need to watch how they say things. Okay, I read Donald Trump's tweet, and Donald Trump's tweet had nothing to do with race. He basically said, if you're so smart, Ilhan Omar, go back to Somalia, go straighten out their country, and then come back.
That's all
he didn't say, get out of here, you black Muslim woman, okay? Or love it or leave it, like that old saying, love America or leave. He didn't say anything like that. He said, you're so smart, go back to Somalia, straighten out that mess, which is your country that you came from, and then come back here, show us your success, and then maybe we'll listen to you. Had nothing to do with race. But the people in the audience need to understand, okay? You are under a microscope, and you may very well not have meant it the way it came out, okay? You have an enemy in the press, okay? You have an enemy in the culture, in Hollywood, in the education system. We talk about this all the time, okay? Watch what you say. Stay in the realm of ideas. Don't start chanting, send her back, okay? That was really boneheaded on your part. And Joe's right. Donald Trump was right to say nothing.
He didn't say a thing.
All right?
Didn't say
really,
a thing.
really boneheaded. Okay, and I know this, and we've spoken about this before. I know this because I've been on the front line, okay? Let's say for praying in front of abortion clinics, okay? In my experience, all right? And you know what? I've learned a lot there about discipline. And you guys, okay, you need to learn about discipline. Sometimes you just have to keep your mouth shut, like I was taught by other people who told me, don't get angry, don't retaliate, shut up and pray, okay? So in this case, shut up, don't start chanting. What do you think the press is going to do with you? You're already racist, now you're a triple racist.
And also to flip the coin a little bit, you know, it's okay to dissent on an idea or on an opinion. It's another thing to hate your own country. And a lot of the comments, frankly, that have come out of AOC's mouth, have come out of Ilhan Omar's mouth, frankly, if you really wanted to dissect them, one could actually say, do you believe in the American fabric of, like, do you believe in the ideals of this country?
Do you believe in the Constitution?
I actually, from an objective perspective, some of the things that they've said, by the way, AOC described contemporary America, this is her language, as garbage. Contemporary America. Who are you?
Right.
And frankly, you know something? Maybe as a politician, you shouldn't say to her, well, then go somewhere else. But if we were all like kind of hanging out and we were friends, that's maybe what I would say. Right. Maybe not as the president. If you don't like it here, then move.
Why don't you leave?
Like,
if it's so
if
bad,
it's garbage.
And they say, well, no, but you know the argument. Oh, no, well, we need to change it. Well, there's people like us that say, no, we do. Look, Joe and I have said a million times, okay? There's this idea, this idolatry of America, okay? We're not for that either. America has got a lot of problems, okay? Fundamental problems. I can't think of a place on this earth that I would rather live.
Oh, gosh.
Not right now.
Close.
Okay? If I stretch my brain a little more and did a little research, maybe, okay? But as it is, we're from Newark, New Jersey, and I want to die in Newark, New Jersey, or in this part of New Jersey, okay? We do, all right, we do have a patriotism. We do love our country, but America does some, as we pointed out a million times, we have the only word I could come up with is disgustingness in America. We have legalized abortion that was imposed on us in all 50 states, just to give you an example, okay? So the thing is, there are things that have to change in America, but I'm going to stay here and I'm going to fight.
That's why we do this.
Okay, that's why we do this, okay? And we're going to fight in the battleground of ideas, and whoever wins, wins. I still like living in America. I am still at least temporarily, we're still free. We don't know. That's another conversation we're going to have later on about just how free we are and how much freer we're going to be in the future, or less free we're going to be in the future. But the point is, yes, you're exactly right. It's not, like you said in conversation, it's not a sin to tell AOC, well, if this place is really bad and you think Maduro's doing a better job in Venezuela, listen, you're free to leave. And there's nothing racial about that.
Has
nothing to do with race, and that's what really Trump was saying.
And yes, and frankly, like I said, they took his quote, they took it out of context, and I think, again, they feel that this guy is a member of the Ku Klux Klan, and I think it can't be further from that. And frankly, it's not fair. It's not fair, and it doesn't help the fact that there is elements of racism in this country. And by throwing a race card into the arena of ideas when there is no racism to be found only hurts the problem. And frankly, it basically throws kerosene on a fire.
But there are some out there who understand when you look now. Look, Nancy Pelosi, all right, she has positions that make me want to vomit. Okay, particularly her position on baby killing. Okay, and she is radical. Okay, to a degree. I think she might have a boundary. I'd have to look at it a little more. But here's one thing I do know: this squad has no boundary whatsoever. They want to pull the country completely to the left, and anybody who disagrees with them whatsoever, okay, is a racist. And getting back to what we originally said, let's start taking our language back. Let's stop, number one, get in their face. Don't hit them. Get in their face when they call you a racist. Say, how am I a racist? And I guarantee you the response you're going to get is, well, you don't agree with this and you don't agree with that. Yes, those are political issues. Or in many cases, moral issues like abortion. Okay, yeah, I disagree with them. So go ahead. Tell me again why I'm racist. But that's the way things are working now in America. They are the embodiment of identity politics. Okay, they embody that and how they use identity as a political weapon against you, so that when you disagree, okay, and we disagree with a lot of things they say. We disagree with a lot of things, and we're going to get into it in a little bit with what the right says too. All right. Well, it must be because you have white skin, and you know what? Frankly, like you said about the boy that cried wolf, it's going beyond that now. Now we're saying not only do we not believe you, we're starting to get angry. Stop calling us racist. All right, we're not racist. All right, we don't care how many times you say it. All right, and we really ought not allow them to do this anymore. The best we could, anyway.
Couple shout outs to Artie, by the way. The books. I didn't get around to it this
Sorry,
week.
Artie.
I'll do it. I'll straighten those books out for you. Artie's here. Vinny's here from Hoboken. Joe's wife's here as well. And you're with the front line with Joe and Joe.
We got a few people. Chuck's checking in also. All right. Karen's checking in. Says happy birthday, Joe.
Thank
happy
you,
birthday.
Thank you, Karen.
I did want to address something, and not because it popped up. But here's a perfect example. My wife tells this story, and then we'll segue into the next. My wife tells this story. My wife came down with me to pray in front of Planned Parenthood one day, right? And we were processing down. And here's what I mean about race and why it's the boy who cried wolf. My language might not be a little great right now, but just bear with me for the purpose of telling the story. Long story short, we were being confronted by a bunch of crazies. I call them the crazies because that's what they are.
The liberal loonies.
The liberal loonies, the lefty loonies, pro-choice New York. And finally, we were trying to process down. And as we're processing down, and it was like there hasn't been a rainstorm on the earth like this since the time of Noah. Okay, it was a summer day, and it was just raining. My wife's next to me, and a black girl's right in front of us. Okay, getting in my wife's face, saying, "Listen, you black bitch, if you're not here to have an abortion, then go to F home." Okay, how does that comment? I'm saying that story as a question to AOC. All right, or Ayanna Pressley, because Ayanna Pressley's black. Do you condone that black girl saying that to my wife, who's also black? But you see, I'm only telling the story as a point that it's got nothing to do with race. And like you said, JoJo, it's got everything to do with politics. My wife's a black bitch because she's pro-life, being called that by a young black girl who is pro-choice. So give us all a break. We're not listening to you anymore.
Our next two segments are related to the convention which took place this week in DC, the National Conservatism Conference. We have two really, really good talks that I read into a little bit, and I basically recommend that you check them out. You can check them out on YouTube. We're going to start out with Josh Hawley. We've covered him on the show in the past. Josh Hawley is a senator out of Missouri. He's a young man. He's a Republican, but that's not why, and I don't want you to get put off by the fact that we're featuring two speakers from the National Conservatism Conference. Listen to what he says, because what he says cuts across both parties. I personally believe, and this is why Donald Trump was elected, the parties, the Democratic Party as it stands right now, as well as the conservative Republican Party, the quote-unquote Republican Party, have abandoned the middle class. That's why Donald Trump was elected. They have abandoned you, and they have abandoned me. And this is what he discusses at this particular conference. And I want to give you a few highlights, and then we can kind of because I think they were very good. The main focus of his speech was basically how globalism basically is working for the cosmopolitan classes in both parties and have abandoned the American middle class. Absolutely a fact. Now, can we get a completely around globalism? We live in a global economy. No, to some degree We do live in that environment, but there are things that you can do to limit it. And Donald Trump has been trying to do that because why? To use his statement, he puts America first.
Right.
And every country, you're seeing that in England right now with Brexit, and you're seeing that actually across Europe. People like Donald Trump, politicians who are trying to put their country first, and there's no shame in it.
And Poland's doing that.
Absolutely.
Hungary's doing that.
Absolutely.
Austria's doing that. Italy is doing that. Just to digress for 1 second. And what happens when all of these leaders, all right, in the case of England, we don't know who's leading them. It was Cameron when Brexit took place. Then it was Theresa May. Okay, so now, but leaving aside England, but it's the same impulse. But what are the leaders of Italy, Austria, Hungary, Poland, America, Brazil?
Yep.
Okay, all have in common? You're all racist. Every one of you is
they're pushing back against
right,
it a little bit.
Well, they're pushing back against unfettered immigration. Okay, they're pushing back against unfettered capitalism. Okay, without any checks whatsoever, and in many cases, they're pushing back against abortion, the cultural agenda. They're pushing back against abortion. So, having said that, and they're all in the same soup as Donald Trump. They're all racist.
Also, some other things that Josh Hawley mentioned in his talk: how elites distrust patriotism. If you call yourself a patriot, in their mind, all of a sudden you're a fascist. Absolutely not true. Absolutely not true. The cosmopolitan elites look down, and this is both Republicans and Democrats, by the way.
Right.
They look down on things that once bound our nation. Now, what are they? Our religious faith, our inherited traditions, family, neighborhoods, church, all of these things that once bound our nation, both elites in both parties look their nose down on. That's a problem. The left champions multiculturalism and basically degrades our common identities, basically. The right celebrates hyperglobalism and promises that the market will make everything right. That is not correct either. And this is a guy, I'm telling you, he gets it. He's a young guy. Keep your eye out for him. Frankly, I believe he's the future of the Republican Party.
Or he should be the
Absolutely.
future of the
And by the way,
Party.
neither party is interested in the American middle. Neither of them. That's why Donald Trump won. Neither of these parties, by the way, in big cities where both the elites live, of the Republicans and the Democrats, you can't live there. In the middle class has no place in LA, in New York City, in Chicago, San Francisco, Philly, Boston.
Right.
There is no middle class in those places.
You might get blue collar areas in the outer boroughs when it comes to New York. All right, obviously Jersey, Manhattan itself, rich and poor.
Oh,
okay. So Manhattan's rich and poor, Chicago's rich and poor, San Francisco's rich and poor. But remember, this is something that is the model for. Let's give them a name, and I think it's an appropriate name. Some people have used it. We're going to talk about Tucker Carlson in a minute too. He's used it. This is an appropriate name for these people. And like Joe said, they are on the left and they are on the right. Okay, they just manifest themselves in different ways, but they are the oligarchs. These are people who have a very concentrated amount of wealth, and they like a concentrated amount of power that's in their hands. They don't like the fact, they resent the fact that here's a perfect example. These are people who are, like he called them, cosmopolitan elitists, all right? They detest the United States Constitution because that Constitution gives Joe and I, our families, and all of you as much power as Jeff Bezos and Mark Benioff and the CEOs of all these corporations, okay? We have as much power as they do. And they can't stand it. They cannot stand that we say that we have the power to say no to them. We could say no to you. We don't want what you are trying to push on us, okay? And because you have money, that doesn't mean you run things. You're not extra qualified to run the United States of America because you run a successful corporation. No. And they can't stand that. There's this, and this is an impulse that's gone on throughout human history, okay? They never want to see the little guy doing a little bit better. And that's true. We're not fist in the air Marxists. We're the opposite of that. But let's face it, there's always been an elite, and the elite always tries to go out of its way to extract as much wealth, usually by stealing our labor, okay? And accumulating that wealth and then subsequently that power for themselves. That's what they've done through all of human history, and that's what we're dealing with now in America. That's why this is spot on. This is one of those segments. So I said to Joe earlier, this is spot on about what we're confronting in America, because we're dealing with the elites, the cosmopolitan elites in both parties, and we're dealing with the cosmopolitan elites in Hollywood, in academia, in the media, in big corporate, big business.
Absolutely.
And we're all sitting here, and everybody's convinced that you have no power. Well, Joe and I are here to tell you that you have power. Okay, we have the power to take this culture back and to take this country back, and it will be politicians. I hesitate to call them a politician because it has such a negative connotation, but political leaders like Josh Hawley that are going to spearhead this.
Well, I hope, and this is where people have to take off their political identity hat. There's too many people that just identify with this or that. You have to think for yourself. Listen to what people are saying. What are your ideas? Frankly, in all honesty, outside of hate right now, the Democratic Party has no ideas. None. Zero. Except I hate Donald Trump.
Right.
I hate the orange man. That is basically their idea right now.
Right.
This guy has ideas. And frankly, we should not be for the Jeb Bush Republican.
No way.
Or the Joe Biden Democrat.
No way.
We should be for people that represent the middle class. Because, by the way, it's the middle class that makes America great. You go to any country in the world, and I've traveled a lot, even in Europe. Take France, Italy. It gets real poor real fast when you go outside of Rome. We are special because we have a middle class that thrives. I am the son of a barber, and my mother is a secretary. I say this over and over on the show. I have 2 master's degrees. That does not happen in Europe. That does not happen in South America. It happens here. Why? Because the middle class thrives. We were at his cousin's yesterday. His cousin is a teamster. He owns a house. He drives a truck for a living. That does not happen in South America. That does not happen in France. That's what makes America great. And any politician, whether they're a Democrat or they're a Republican, that does not lay out for you a plan for you to thrive is not for you.
Which means, by extension, they are your enemy. And we have enemies. Okay? And I want to talk about that for a second, because I was thinking about that when we were hanging out yesterday, right? So we're hanging out, okay? We now, AOC, are you listening? All right? This was in the racist white people's house in Bloomfield, New Jersey, all right? Where it was us, our black wives, okay?
My biracial kids.
There's biracial kids. My cousins' sons, okay?
Who are Hispanic.
Who are Hispanic and Italian, okay? With a couple of my aunt's friends who were there, one who was Hispanic and one who was Italian, all right? But racism all over the place, of course, okay? So I just wanted to throw that out, okay? But my point about bringing it up is, what's the difference between what they do and what we were doing? You see how they look down their nose on us? We're around the pool, okay? So we're not in the Hamptons, okay? We're drinking whiskey and Budweisers, okay? So we're not drinking Grey Goose, okay? We're having a barbecue, so we put together some New York strips and some hamburgers and hot dogs, okay? We're not having foie gras, all right? We didn't get it catered, okay? We were doing the same thing that the elites do. The difference is, when we sit around and do it, it's out of love of family and friends. They sit around just so they could throw compliments at one another and talk about how all their beautiful things they have in life, and the fact that they've scammed their way to get their child into the Ivy League, which we covered 2 months ago when we covered that whole nonsense. And they all talk about they're all very, very self-congratulatory, and we're all sitting around.
And by the way, we all hate each other.
All right, and they all hate each other, where we all love each other, and we're all sitting around the table. And we're having a conversation that was strikingly familiar, because it sounded like the front line with Joe and Joe, okay, with differing opinions. But see, we have the same experience, but you try to tell us, well, that's not the same as what we do. It's exactly the same. In fact, it's much, much better, because there is always one thing that we have in our mix of friends and family that you don't. We have God, okay? We have God. So continue, Joe.
No, but I honestly believe people have to drop that, because I hear it too many times, and this is something that his cousin actually said yesterday. He said, this is not the Democratic Party of JFK. This is out of his mouth, who is a contractor, who was there, a successful contractor. Those who basically vote the line, no, stop it. Listen to what these people are for. They are going to take away your life from you.
Right.
They are going to take away what makes America great.
Have they not already been doing that? Has it not so seeped into our national consciousness? The way we allow them and have allowed them to really, what it comes down to, and this is a whole segment for a whole nother show, but just to bring it up, the theft of our labor. It really is what it comes down to. They resent the wealth that's created by the middle class in this country, the working class and the middle class in this country, okay? It is the engine of the American economy. When you have a thriving and vibrant middle class, the economy's doing well, and hey, all the rich people are making money too, all right? You may be making a little bit less, but you're still doing very, very well. But we're building our lives, okay? And we're keeping we're keeping it moving. We're keeping everything going. So what do? They concoct schemes, okay? They always concoct schemes. And I just want to give a quick shout out. Chuck just gave us the greatest compliment. Chuck, thank you so much. First time listening to you both. I'm so happy I found this. We're happy you're here, Chuck. Stick with us, spread the word. But back to schemes. What are the two biggest ways? Joe and I talk about this all the time, that we need to put together a real in-depth program on this. They are so jealous of the wealth that we create, even though our wealth is much more decentralized, okay? We're not envious of the neighbor when he has a $450,000 house. If I'm living in a $375,000 house, he's my neighbor. We love each other. The kids play together. You know what I'm trying to say? What do they do? What do these oligarchs do? This is about what Josh Hawley was talking about. What do the cosmopolitan elites do? They concoct schemes. First of all, the biggest scheme, which I don't know we could do much about without a real political movement in this country, is that we need the abolition of the personal income tax. It is the greatest theft of your labor. Don't let Nancy Pelosi and the rest of them lie to you. They get money from their rich buddies, when they raise their taxes, but they're taking it out of your pocket. There is no reason why in this country you have to go to work, and when you get your paycheck, the government has shaved its piece off the top. That needs to be done away with. That's a much harder task. I'm not trying to suggest that we could change that tomorrow, okay?
But also, I just want to talk a little bit about this too, and that is true, and that's something that we should talk about.
But real quick, theft of labor. I want you people to remember that. We're going to do a show on that. The theft of our labor, that's what the cosmopolitan elites are about.
But they're always, you see, when you are in that slice of life, either you on the Democratic side or the Republican side, you're still rich. You see, all they want to do is throw you a crumb. You see, they still have, and you don't. Throw them the crumb. They still lease the same cars. They still go on the same vacations. I had a friend during the recession. He taught at, I think it's Montclair Baird. It's a real fancy high school in Western New Jersey. It's like $50,000 a year high school. He taught math there. And he was telling me, I got laid off twice during the recession. I work in banking. I got laid off. I know tons of people. They were either underemployed, laid off. He was telling me he's tutoring kids, working, these people paying $50,000 a year to send their kid to high school. He's like, Joe, their lifestyle has not changed one iota.
Right.
If you are one of these people, all they do to basically, I think it's to appease their consciences, throw them a crumb.
Right.
Throw them a crumb here. It's basically their life doesn't change. By the way, that crumb that they're throwing you isn't going to get taken from the 1%.
Right.
It's going to be taken from all of you.
Right.
All of you and me. And your lifestyle is going to be changed forever.
Right.
Forever. You go to Europe. See if people own houses. The middle class do not own houses in Europe. I visited family outside of Milan. Regular people live in apartments.
Yep.
Regular people don't go to college. There's two ways you go to college in those places. You test to get in, meaning you have a very high, in our language, SAT score, or you're rich. You don't take loans to go to college.
Right.
I have a very good friend who's from the Philippines. There is no loans. You could be smart as anything. If you're a common man, you're not going to college.
Right. I want to touch on the loan thing.
It's nuts.
No, you're 1,000% right. I want to touch on the loan thing because this is very important, because this is something that we can do and we all need to do, and we can start a movement about this. This is something that we have in our ability to at least take one part of this oligarchic, structure that they've set up and put a dent in their power by taking their money. When you make a statement, okay, Pope Leo XIII in 1891, he wrote an encyclical called Rerum Novarum. Now, I'm not going to get into the details of it, but basically it was about capitalism and socialism and communism. In that encyclical, socialism and communism were condemned, but also consumerism, okay, and unfettered capitalism.
John Paul II also made a statement like that when Poland fell, and he saw communism firsthand. He said communism is destructive, but he also said, these are intelligent people, by the way.
Right.
Don't just bucket the Pope and think he's
an idiot. I don't have to listen to him because he's Catholic. You should listen.
He's a smart guy. And this is a man, John Paul, going along the lines of what he said. He basically said unfettered capitalism is just as destructive as communism.
And aren't we, now my point, thank you for that, because spot on, aren't we seeing that now? Because people go look at it now and say, well, unemployment's low, this and that. Yes, you can point to many things where we can get up right now and go to work. But here's my point. Just because things are the way they are now, but every little downturn, who gets hurt? Who never gets a chance to get ahead?
I lost my job twice.
Right. He lost his job twice. I was out of work when the financial crisis happened. The bottom line is this. We can't withstand the downturns because people are stealing our money. Notice that my point that I was going to make about alongside of the personal income tax, which shaves a significant portion of your income right off the bat. By the way, the government takes their piece directly out of your paycheck before you get to spend one thin dime on yourself, your spouse, and your children. Before you spend one thin dime on food, shelter, and clothing, gas in your car or the car itself, insurance, all the health care, all these things, the government takes their piece first. Now, the reason why I brought up Pope Leo is because it's unfortunate that on the right, Pope Leo starts out the encyclical by saying, and I'm not going to analyze the encyclical, but I want to make a larger point, that labor is the source of all wealth. Labor is the source of all wealth. All right, I believe Adam Smith said that also. I think Karl Marx said that also, okay? So it's not one of those statements that you could just pigeonhole and say, oh, you must be a socialist. That's my criticism of conservatives, the Chamber of Commerce conservatives, because if you recognize labor as being an integral part, probably the most valuable part of capital creation, of wealth creation in this country, the first response, knee-jerk from the right, is, well, you must be a socialist. No, we're not. But you don't respect labor. You are what Holy's calling a cosmopolitan elite. You want a globalist system. See what happens in this country? All right, we talked about it before. Okay, vibrant middle class. Families. Oh, that must be a bad word. Okay, families. Not shipping our jobs overseas so somebody in China could get 50 cents a day to make that product that's going to come in and flood our markets. And what happens to our wages? They all go down. So what happens is, on the one hand, okay, you have them, we're getting crappier wages, okay, because so many of Donald Trump has started to make some headway, but we have a ways to go to rebuild this manufacturing base, but we need to get back to really good wages for families. But what happens, okay? What do the cosmopolitan elites do?
They get rich.
They get, you got the personal income tax, and what's the other thing that's killing this country? That's the theft of your labor. That's why I brought up labor. What the biggest thing, and we could do something about it, is compound interest. Joe mentioned the dream. In other words, Joe mentioned the things they tell you to do. In other words, you got to take out loans to go to school and things like that. We have to stop listening to their propaganda too. This American dream that they're selling us is nothing other than them trying to sell you debt that's going to have you in debt for the rest of your life.
And that's modern day slavery.
It's nail on the head. Nobody wants to use that word. Keep it.
Am I a racist?
Was that?
Am I a racist?
Of course you are. So am I. But that's the thing. Joe hit the nail on the head. I was going to go towards slavery. He beat me to it. Okay, that is our biggest problem with the left and the right. The left wants to make us a slave to the state. The right wants to make us a slave to the market. We, okay, are not slaves to anyone other than God. But outside of God, we're not slaves to anybody. Okay, and we're not meant to be as Americans slaves to anybody. Okay, I'm not going to be a slave to your state, AOC, and to you Chamber of Commerce evangelical Christians who never want to say anything about the free market, who think if you go anywhere near the free market, you're a Marxist. Okay, I'm not going to be a slave to your market either. So you're not sending me into the coal mine for $15 an hour. You're not sending me into the steel mill for $15 an hour, or into the auto plant, or into the airplane plant where they make airplanes, or the oil rig. Not paying me $15 an hour. Are you on crack? But that's what they try to say. Well, that's what the market will bear. Then screw the market. Then we need unions that are going to go in and negotiate labor. In other words, and to get hired at your company, they're going to have to go. They're going to have to go through the unions. Something's got to be done. But you are part of the cosmopolitan elite that Josh Hawley is talking about, that Joe wanted to talk about tonight. You're stealing our labor. You pay us crap. You'll never say anything about the banks charging usurious compound interest on everything, by the way. That was the American dream. What's the American dream? What's the American dream? What's the first thing you got to do? Buy a house, debt. Go to school, debt. You got to have a car, and you can't get that. Nice. And it's got to be a nice car. So you can't go for that $15,000 certified pre-owned car. Every 3 years, you got to get a new car because you got to keep up with the Joneses. And what are they selling you? Debt you'll never get out of. I said it a couple weeks ago. I'm going to kick it back to Joe. Said it a couple weeks ago. Remember something. A $300,000 house in New Jersey, that's a moderate home in our area down here. Just use that number, $300,000. Take out a 30-year mortgage at 4% and calculate the interest, and you're going to be at about $280,000 worth of interest that you paid over 30 years on that $300,000 house. They have just stolen your labor. They do the same thing when you buy a car. They do the same thing when you buy all sorts of products. When they say, you don't have to pay now, don't worry about it. And they charge you 8, 9, 10%. That's usury. Okay, and they do the same thing. They sell these kids this idea of education. Those kids are slaves. Okay, my wife and I are taking care of her student loan. We are slaves to that till it's paid. Okay, because there's no way around it. And again, it's usury. That's another thing that the cosmopolitan elites on the right will do nothing about. They love charging interest. They get to sit there and do nothing. They get to sit there and do nothing. I got $10 million. I'll lend out $10 million. Hey, listen. If you told that to an Italian Shylock in North Jersey, he'd love it. I get to say, why do you think they did that? Why do you think that was their business? I got $100,000. I'll put it on the street. I'll make 3% a week. He's making $3,000 a week for doing nothing but walking around the neighborhood collecting money. What do you think the banks do now? And don't start crying anti-Semitism. There's plenty of people that are doing that are involved in compound interest and usury, like Catholics, Jews, Muslim, well, not Muslims maybe so much, Protestants. So don't start crying anti-Semitism, because by the way, I'll kick it back to you. Globalism, and when you talk about the problems, let's say in the banking sector, like when it comes to compound interest, automatically, we started the conversation by saying, if you take certain positions, you're a racist. If you take those positions, you're anti-Semitic. Just to be clear, we'll be called anti-Semitic, because if you rail against globalism, oh, you're blaming the Jews. No, I'm just criticizing usury. Well, usury, of course, always comes up. And in the meantime, like I said, well, there's a lot of people in the banking industry. The problem is with the system, and the system needs to change, because again, they're just stealing our labor. That was my larger point, Joe.
Which basically brings us to Tucker Carlson's statements at the same conference, National Conservatism Conference. And please don't get put off by Tucker Carlson, because I think he says some interesting things, and I think they were very insightful. By the way, you're with the Frontline with Joe and Joe every Sunday night at 8 o'clock. You can catch us on HolyFaith Media as well. Tucker Carlson, basically, he made 3 points that I think we should pay attention to. The first one, which I thought was interesting, he said, it's not government that the American people should fear. It's actually big business. Now, that is a surprising statement to make at such a conference, a conservatism conference. And this is why I respected what he said, and this is why I'm bringing your attention. I hope you're also paying attention that we don't wear ideological hats. That conversation that he just had, particularly talking about labor, is not lockstep with the Republican Party. I just want to throw, throw that little perk out there. And this is what he's doing right here. He's saying it's not government that we should fear, it's big business. Now, why? He uses the example of an Oreo cookie commercial, which I guess he saw, he has a family, saying basically young kids could identify the pronoun they'd like to be called. Now, this is Oreo cookies who are advertising to your kids, who are basically, everyone likes Oreo cookies. They eat it in ice cream, they eat it with milk. They're telling your kids, they're giving them a message. Mm-hmm. He's basically saying it's the big businesses, the ideas, the big ideas that they're basically communicating to you, to your kids right now as I speak are dangerous, and he's spot on. The second thing along those same lines of big business that he brings up is Google is way too big. And he's right.
That's a true statement.
And by the way, Bernie Sanders actually said he'd break up, but he's a hard.
But he's
a communist.
Right diagnosis, wrong solution.
Right. But he said Google is why it's too small a group of people that have too much power and contain too much information. They could control ideas and do. It's been proven that they have censored ideas, conservative ideas, by the way, and the left will do nothing about it. Why? Because it favors them.
Right.
And as long as they're in power, they will allow people like Google to exist. And frankly, they should be broken up. I even think Facebook should be broken
The
up.
left would be, as opposed to breaking it up. Now, Bernie Sanders might be a little bit different, but you're politically. Bernie Sanders strikes me as he's really
He's a communist.
Yeah, but he's a true believer.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
He actually thinks
Absolutely.
that if you had the state ownership of the means of production, he believes in all the Marxist steps.
By the way, he has 3 houses.
Right, 3 houses.
3 houses
and
in D.C., a mansion in Burlington, and a lake house.
And made $1 million on a book.
Selling a book. But that's fine, Bernie, for you, but not for me. You'll take all my money
But we need to
and give it away.
Yes, exactly. But
No
you
problem
need
with that.
right, because you make too much money, Joe. You make too much money, and I only wrote a book. You work for those greedy banks, Joe Resinello. That's what he would say. Something along that. Vinny, that was for you.
He'd probably say it just like that.
He probably would say it just like that with a finger wagging in the air. That old man, just the old crusty socialist. But the thing is, too, you have to understand, with a lot of these more, let's say, a lot of leftists, okay, and a lot of your oligarchs on the right, they love big things. See, if they have big things, then they can control. The bigger they are, the more they can control. The one interesting point is where a lot of times they call things fascist. They use the word fascist. They don't even really know what it means. But one part, very superficial explanation or definition of fascist economics is when you have things that are very big. Big government, big business, big labor. All kind of like aligned, working together for the common good of society. Again, very superficial, but my point is the left has no problem. I mean, that's really what they're espousing. When the left likes Google, because Google is on their side now, Google, like you said, is a very small group of people that control a large amount of money, a large amount of information on all of you out there and all of us on this side, okay? They like that. It's a lot easier. You break up Google and all of a sudden, because remember, we started out, we were talking about how they detest people like us because we actually have power under our Constitution. Us jamokes here in North Jersey, who were sitting around a barbecue yesterday drinking Budweisers and whiskey, okay, we have as much power as Barack Obama sitting over there in the Hamptons.
2 weeks ago, we had 6,000 views. This very show, 6,000 people looked at it. So that is a platform. That is power.
And of course it's power. And as you gain more, why do you think they want Google to stay nice and big? Okay. Now the right, they don't want to interfere with Google because remember something. You're talking about Tucker Carlson, okay, at the conservatism conference. Okay. He said in the I didn't watch it, but I read the article. All right. The people he was getting guffawed at by were conservatives, sure, and libertarians. See, libertarians, people need to get this distinction through their head too. The libertarian is not your friend, can be your friend, but if you are, in the case of us, let's say faithful Roman Catholics, okay, we value the free market, but we're not going to say that the government has no role at all, okay? We are conservative on social issues. We want to see the abolition of abortion. Now, libertarians are going to go vote for the Republican the same way we're going to go vote for the Republican, okay? But libertarians are not your friend. They laughed at Tucker Carlson because he's criticizing one of their sacred cows. Leave the economy alone. Leave the free market alone. Businesses should be allowed to just do whatever they want, okay, for the most part, without government intervention, and let the market. What did Tucker Carlson say about the market? Didn't he say, don't worry about anything. The free market will take care of it. And he said, make a comment
the free market brought down the banks.
Right. That was my point. If the tendency of the free market is for things to get really big, for someone who's successful to just keep buying things and just get bigger and bigger and bigger, well, that's not benefiting the common good. That's not benefiting society. Because like you said, then you end up what you have in 2007, and you have all the idiots in Washington. Well, no, we're the idiots because we voted for them, going out and borrowing $1.2 trillion, both George Bush on the right and Barack Obama on the left, to go bail out who? the banks
and
with the threat that your life is going to be over.
and the car.